What's up, everyone? Idahomi here, and today I'm going to be going through and doing a review for Disney Plus's show The Mandalorian, Episode 5, The Gunslinger. Now I'm just going to jump right into it, talk about a couple key points that I liked throughout this episode. It isn't necessarily a summary of what happened. It's going to be more so of just the main points that stuck out to me, what I liked, and some things that I didn't like. Just to forewarn you guys, there will be spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it yet, please go on and watch it, then come back and watch the video afterwards so we can have a good discussion about what we saw. Let's just jump right into it. This episode jumps right away into a space fight where it shows Mando and Baby Yoda flying away from this ship that's shooting at them, and obviously you can tell it's a bounty hunter. And this to me was a cool opening fight. I never thought I would see an actual Star Wars space battle like that on a TV show. And it was pretty good how it was gone through and it was made. The CGI looked great. But overall, I think it was okay. It was good. I think it's always hilarious in movies like this where you literally had this bounty hunter chasing Mando, shoots his ship like, what, 4 times? One time hitting his left engine where it blows up, or it looks like it blows up on the inside. But somehow Mando's ship is still fine. He throws on the e-brake. The bounty hunter goes over the top of him. He shoots the other ship once and it explodes. That stuff to me is kind of hilarious because his ship got shot multiple times, literally shot out his engine, and he just turns around and boom, one shot, kills the guy, it's over, and somehow manages to still make it down to the planet with the ship as it was. So anyway, that was just a quick kind of opening. I thought it was cool, but at the same time, a little cheesy. So we're going to start off with that. The next thing I'm going to go over is there is something about The Mandalorian where every episode they do a great job of coming in and introducing these great secondary characters. In this episode, it was the lady who was working inside of the docking bay, who is basically the mechanic of the ship. I don't know, I just feel like every episode of The Mandalorian, they introduce someone who's charismatic, who's fun, who we want to learn more about. And this was that lady and her droids. It was cool to see her and Mando's relationship early on with how she basically acted like the typical mechanic that we see when we go take our car in. Oh, well, you probably ought to get this fixed. This probably needs to be changed. Probably ought to do this, and this is how much it's going to cost. And you could see Mando's reaction where he's like, okay, well, I probably need to go make some money. And then you see Baby Yoda come walking down the little walkway of the ship, and there's just every episode, there's 3 or 4 times where my wife and I literally just look at each other and we're like, oh my gosh, Baby Yoda. And again, this episode has another couple of spots. It's just how they made that little puppet. It's so realistic, and it's pretty cool how they've got it all set up. Another part of this episode that I absolutely loved was when Mando goes to the cantina on Tatooine, and he's looking for work so that he can pay for the repairs on his ship. And he runs into this young bounty hunter. And this bounty hunter is actually played really well. I really enjoyed his character as well. And it was fun seeing as they go throughout the episode their dynamic as the old experienced bounty hunter, which is Mando, and this young bounty hunter who's trying to learn the ropes of how the situation is. And as they go out looking after this assassin, this bounty that this young bounty hunter has, you can see where the experience of Mando comes into play, where there's a couple times you could see, okay, if he's not there, this new guy's probably going to die. And it's cool to see kind of the progression and how the difference is. Side note, I thought something else that was pretty cool was we got to see Tuscan Rangers in this one. And for the first time that I can remember in a movie or TV show, the Tuscan Rangers actually talk and they interact. They're not just some mindless beasts out walking in the desert. How Mando goes through and does his sign language thing, I thought that was pretty interesting. As a Star Wars fan, it was cool to see that they actually can communicate and they've got something going on. So once this new bounty hunter and Mando start working towards this bounty, this assassin who is well renowned and who Mando's like, if you go after on your own, dude, you're probably gonna die pretty quick. As they're approaching her at night, it was really cool, that whole scene that they did with the speeders and how they used the flares in order to help with that, with her scope that she was using. That whole scene was just really cool. And I don't understand. Mando gets shot, I would say maybe 4 times in this episode. He gets sniped in the chest and it just bounces off that armor. I'm just really confused, and maybe I don't understand the lore of all this, but stormtroopers have that awesome looking armor that looks like it's just made of plastic. If they invested a little bit more into this Mandalorian armor, they could have probably won a couple more battles and been a little bit more dominant. But the metal could be super rare. I don't understand it necessarily too much. But just as an average viewer who loves Star Wars, I watch that. I'm like, how come? Has anyone seen this Mandalorian? We keep shooting him in the chest and in the head, and the bullets are bouncing off of it. Do you think we should try and maybe instead of using that metal to make money, maybe we should use it to make armor? I don't know. Okay. Yeah, we'll run it by Kylo in the First Order later on. Okay, awesome. Once they're able to make it up this mountain to where the assassin is actually stationed, where she was sniping this whole time, there's this fight scene that between the assassin and this younger bounty hunter that I thought was choreographed so well. The fight was pretty awesome. And obviously right when she's about to win, Mando shows up after he's been shot in the chest. And this to me was one of the coolest parts of the episode. And it's where I hope they're going to be going with this season. There are two major issues right now that I have with The Mandalorian. And to preface it, I have loved it so far. It's exceeded my expectations up to this point. But there's two major points to this show that have really bugged me so far. And I'm curious to see what you guys think. Make sure to let me know in the comments below. The first one with this is I feel like there really isn't one main overarching plot to the show. I feel like the first couple episodes, he's going after this bounty, he picks it up, bounty hunters are going after him. But over the last, I would say 2 or 3 episodes, there really hasn't been much besides just the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda traveling to a planet to get away, showing up to that planet, performing some kind of bounty with some great side characters showing up, and then moving on. I don't really feel like there's anything really driving the show, if that makes sense. There's no end goal that we're trying to get to right now. And maybe that's where we're going into, but anyway, that's the first one. The second critique that I would say I have for this show is there really isn't a lot of meat so far in the episodes, if that makes sense. Especially in this episode, it was still really good, but compared to the last two, there really wasn't anything that I looked at and I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. Maybe that will lead on to something later on in the episode. There's maybe 1 or 2 things, but I felt like maybe a third is too much, but I felt like a chunk of this show was basically just shots of the Mandalorian flying his ship in and landing, the Mandalorian and this young bounty hunter riding out on their speeder bikes, the Mandalorian riding on the beast that he picks up at the end. Does that make sense? I feel like there's a lot of the cinematography is beautiful, how they've gone through and made it look is amazing, don't get me wrong, but there really doesn't seem like there's that much dialogue and much stuff that's really progressing the plot of the story. That could be just me. I just felt that a lot in this episode. This episode wasn't as good as what I felt like the last couple have been. It was still good, don't get me wrong, but not as good. Okay, so let's get back to before I got on that rant of the 2 things that have been the issues for me so far. The reason I bring that up is when they're able to go through and they find this assassin and they're getting her handcuffs put on her, she starts talking to Mando and starts talking about how he's a Mandalorian and how he's doing. And she mentions how there were Mandalorians on Navarro who were involved in a fight and it didn't turn out so well for him. And how it was shot, I know that the Mandalorian is wearing armor and so you can't really see emotions on his face. But how it was shot and how he kind of had like this little twitch to his body when he was standing there, you could tell that shook him a little bit. And that to me was pretty cool because I hope that's maybe where they're going with the rest of this season because we already are through 5 episodes. We've got 3 episodes left. So maybe, and what I'm hoping, is the rest of this season is him maybe going back to Navarro, the planet where the guild was and where the Mandalorians were, and seeing what happened to them afterwards. Because you could tell from the first couple that they had a bond. They were like a little family trying to do what they could to keep progressing the Mandalorian name. And so I'm interested to see what they do for these last 3 episodes. I hope it shows them going back maybe and trying to figure out what happened with the rest of his Mandalorian friends. Another thing that I think would be really cool that they do is, and I thought that it was what they were going to do with this episode by the artwork for the episode, was maybe have the Mandalorian go back to the original planet where Baby Yoda was and see if anyone had showed up at that base and figured out a little bit more of who those people were that were protecting Baby Yoda. Why were they protecting him? Do they know what his purpose is? Different things like that. Those are 2 things that I hope they kind of explore these last 3 episodes. But They may not. They may do something totally different. I'm just really hoping that they find an overarching plot and start moving towards that. The last couple of things that I would say I was a little disappointed with this episode was, and I kind of hit on it right in the beginning, was there's all these great secondary characters that I felt like we've had with each episode. You had the one guy in the first 2 episodes where he was always like, I have spoken. And he originally asked him, hey, do you want to come with me? And he said no. Then you had also the droid that was voiced by Taika Waititi in the first episode, where he's actually going with him to get Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian kills him. You also had the girl from the last episode who helped Mando save this village. I feel like there's all these awesome secondary characters that they're introducing that I'm like, I would really like to hear more from them, and I'd really like to see a little bit more from them in the show, and they just kind of disappear. And I'm really hoping that they're going to bring some of these guys back, maybe get a crew going with the Mandalorian where they start traveling together. That may be where they're going. If not, I hope they implement something like that soon, because a lot of these characters are really great and I want to see more of them. The last bummer that I'll say about this episode that I had was this episode was called The Gunslinger, and I was really hoping there was going to be a lot more of this Western style, the Mandalorian maybe fighting some more bounty hunters as they were chasing him down, but there really wasn't much. Them approaching the assassin was pretty awesome, and it had a pretty cool fight scene and how they were able to approach her. And I guess you could see a little bit more at the end when the young bounty hunter turns and he's holding Baby Yoda and the girl hostage, and Mando uses that flare to sneak up to the side and shoot him really fast. I guess that was kind of a gunslinger, but the title of the episode I didn't feel like, again, really matched up with where this, with what was actually inside of this episode. Anyways, guys, that's just a couple of thoughts from me. Overall, I thought this episode was good. It wasn't bad by any means. I just feel like as the season has gone on, it started off good. It's got stronger, I felt like, the last 2 episodes. And I felt like this was kind of the first episode where it didn't necessarily keep progressing and moving on. It kind of just plateaued a little bit. Having said that, the last shot of the episode was this figure, this person, walking up to the dead assassin. And I was trying to figure out who that could be. Maybe it's the leader of the guild who was giving Mando all the jobs in the first couple episodes and who was trying to kill him as he was leaving. It also could have been that lady who helped him in the last episode save the village, trying to track him down. I don't know. I'm interested to see where that goes. But anyway, this was kind of the first episode of the series where I felt like, okay, it hasn't really progressed much, and I'm really hoping it's going to get better from this point on, and I think it will. Anyways, guys, I'm super excited because this was the first episode I was able to review for The Mandalorian, and there's 3 episodes left in this season. I'll be doing a review for each of those as they come out, so make sure to look out for those videos. As always, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button beneath me, and if you enjoy this channel and the content that's coming out, click the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And most importantly, go through and leave some comments in the comments section. Tell me what you liked about this episode. What didn't you like? Did you agree with what I was saying earlier, or is there some things that you disagree with? Make sure to let me know. Let's have a conversation, and I love hearing what you guys think. And anyways, thanks so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys next time.